Hello aspirants, welcome back to Anthropology Concept Series. So friends, as a part of our Anthropology Concept Series, till now we have done some lectures. So try to watch the previous episodes before watching this episode. So friends, in this particular episode, let's try to understand about the concept of approaches to analyze cultures. As in last episode, we tried to understand about the concept of culture and the differences of culture with that of civilization. So friends, in this discussion, let's have this topic that approaches to analyze culture. So can you able to recollect what are the basic approaches that are there available in anthropology syllabus? The first approach is cultural relativism and the second approach is ethnocentrism. So these two concepts are very important in anthropology because they are very central concepts that one must and should know. And many times UPSC has picked it and many times UPSC has asked this particular topic in the examination. So keep an eye and keep a clear-cut understanding of these topics. So friends, without wasting any much of time, let's try to enter into our topic. So first, before we enter into the actual discussion, let's try to have a glance of some of the fascinating cultures and traditions across the world and India. So just have a view of these cultures and traditions and customs and try to just remember how did you feel after listening to this or how did you felt after watching this particular tradition. So be clear with your feeling, whether you are say feeling disgusted or whether you are feeling say surprised or whether you are feeling say a kind of shabby or whatever the feeling that you may get. So try to retain that feeling so that we can discuss further, right? So first, let's begin. So just first look at this particular image. So this image depicts the tradition of frog wedding. So in some parts of India, so there is a tradition of the frogs getting married. So this particular tradition is followed in some parts of the southern India and in some part of northeastern India, where it is called as Bekuli Biya in the northeastern part and Mandu Kaparinaya in some southern part of India. So why do we do this? So usually the people will perform such kind of traditions to ensure good rains. That's their belief and that's the tradition and that's their custom. Then look at the second tradition. Second tradition is the practice of human sacrifice. This practice of human sacrifice was traditionally followed among the Maria Gonds of Odisha. So there is something that is known as Maria. So you can see this. This is known as that Maria. Maria is basically it's the sacrificial post. So among the Gonds of the central India, they used to sacrifice the humans so for having better productivity of their agricultural crops. So that was the reason that they have given for justification to this kind of system. And then friends, you can see this is another thing, say where you can see the human sacrifice depiction that you can see in this particular image. So where a human is being sacrificed. So that's one another tradition. That means you can think what a cruel practice it is, what a cruel tradition it is. So how do you feel now? Imagine yourself being killed or imagine yourself being sacrificed for the sake of, for a single reason of improving the productivity of the soil. So that's one tradition. Now further, look at this. This is one thing that we call as youth dormitories among the Muria Gonds of Bastar region of the central India. So amongst the Muria Gond, there is one culture that is known as Ghotul culture. So Ghotuls are nothing but basically the youth dormitories where the boys and girls will be trained on various socio-cultural aspects, including the aspects such as say the premarital sexual training also will be done. Now, does the mainstream society allow such kind of concepts? That means like a kind of things, remember like a kind of premarital sexual training? It's not possible. Now, how do you feel of listening to such kind of things? That's one another. Now, in the same way, try to just look at this. This is a tradition which is generally followed among the Dani tribes of Indonesia, which is known as the practice of finger amputation. Now you can see that this particular woman has chopped off, say 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, 6 fingers have been chopped up, amputated. Now what does this indicate? This is a practice that they generally follow, that is known as this Ikipalin is the practice name, to express the grief following the death of a close relative. Generally what happens in our communities or in Indian society, if someone or some of our relatives have got expired, then what do? We simply just express our grief and we will complete the funeral rites and we will leave. But here amongst these Dani tribes, they will chop off their fingers. That's a tradition. Now, how do you feel about this? In the same way, there is one tradition among the Malays. Say, there is a dancing with the dead tradition in the Madagascar. So this tradition is known as Famadihana. So this Famadihana, usually that will be performed to share some sort of happiness with the dead ancestors. That's one unique tradition that we can see among these Madagascar region people. So this is one another thing where they will try to exhume the bones of that particular dead ancestor. And in the same way, so they will try to dance with that kind of the dead remains. That's one kind of celebration that they'll be doing with their ancestors. That's one tradition and that's their cultural aspect. And here you can say that in some of the communities, particularly when we say the Kayan tribes of Kayan tribes, so what will happen? The women wears a brass ring coils in the Myanmar region. So they believe that long will be the neck, and long will be the neck, the beauty will be the high. So that's where they feel. This is one kind of cultural tradition that they follow. Now, this is one thing. And you can see this thing also, that this is known as Thaipusam. So where you can see piercing of some of such kind of the material into the body parts. So this is another unique tradition that is followed in the southern India as a part of offering rituals and offerings. So these are all basically some of the important traditions. Now you see this. This is a tradition where a woman is being got wedded with a dog and a woman is being got wedded with a tree. So wedding by plants, a wedding with the trees, wedding with the dogs is one another important cultural tradition. So why do we do this? So to clear some of the things like say Mangalik dosha among the women, it is done. And apart from this, it is also done for exorcism. Exorcism means like throwing away of the evil spirits from the body. That practice is known as exorcism. This is also done. Now, can you be able to imagine yourself being fitting into any of these kind of cultural traditions? Imagine yourself as if you have been wedded with a dog. Imagine as if you have been wedded with a tree. Imagine as if you have been sacrificed. Then how do you feel about such kind of things? This is where you have to keep your emotions intact. Now friends, if you are trying to judge such kind of cultures, say if you would have felt the practice of wedding with a dog as a shabby practice, as a kind of thing, how can this be happen? Then you are trying to judge that particular culture with your culture at the center. So such a kind of attitude in which when you try to judge your one culture with yours culture at the center, then you are talking or you are just simply trying to think from the perspective of ethnocentrism. Now, remember this one thing, that ethnocentrism is one such concept or one such approach to analyze the cultures in anthropological realm, where the concept of ethnocentrism has been first proposed by one of the important American scholars. He is known as William Graham Sumner. So William Graham Sumner, an American anthropologist, so he simply mentioned this particular concept in his book, The Folkways. Folkways is the book in which he has proposed that particular concept. And along with this, in this particular book, Folkways, he explained, he coined, and he just simply mentioned the term ethnocentrism, where he gives a basic explanation of that. Say, what is ethnocentrism according to William Graham Sumner? Sumner says that ethnocentrism is nothing but it's a tendency to assume one's own culture and one's own way of life are superior to all others. That means when we systematically try to judge other culture from our culture's perspective, then such a kind of attitude or tendency in which one's culture is kept at the center and another's culture has been judged, that attitude is known as ethnocentrism. I hope you might have been cleared with this particular thing. Chalo, वैसे छोड़ के, like we'll move ahead and we'll try to understand further. Say, in ethnocentrism, what will happen? That means if a person is ethnocentric, then how his thinking will be means, say, it is a belief that one's own customs, one's own traditions, one's own, say, attitude and one's own, the way of life is superior and one's own, the way of life is preferable than those of other cultures. And evaluating others' culture on the basis of one's own culture. This tendency or this approach is known as ethnocentrism. Now, who proposed this concept of ethnocentrism? Try to comment in the comment box so that we can check to what extent you are learning the facts. Right? So first thing, comment in the chat box that who proposed the concept of ethnocentrism? First thing, first task. Second, let's try to learn about the various aspects about the ethnocentrism. Now, if you are with an ethnocentric attitude, that means you are analyzing a particular culture. So, what are the positive aspects of ethnocentrism and what are the negative aspects of ethnocentrism? Let's try to analyze that. Now, first positive aspect that you can remember is that ethnocentrism induces a sense of we feeling, and ethnocentrism unites the members of a group. So try to remember that when you have a sense of we feeling, when this is my culture and these people are my culture people, so then it gives a sense of we feeling and it unites the members of that particular group. In the modern society, if you see, it usually tries to intensify the sentiments of patriotism. Say for example, all the Indians, we unite with the sense of patriotism. Remember, like if there is any cricket match going on, then what do we feel? Indian team is the best team and Indian team is superior than all the teams. That would be the feeling that we have, isn't it? This is where, so in modern society, ethnocentric attitude will basically induces or intensifies the sentiments of the patriotism. That's one thing that you have to keep in mind. And then it inbreeds social solidarity, it inbreeds the social cooperation, it inbreeds the mutual health, and it inbreeds the such kind of aspects. So this is where ethnocentrism has some of the positive aspects also. But ethnocentric attitude can also bring some of the negative aspects into the system, into the society. What are those things? Say first thing, it inbreeds an intolerance and hatred towards other cultures. This is the first thing. Now, let's say for example, let's take an example from the contemporary societal aspects. Say, there is an issue of, say, the practice of consumption of the beef. Now, the practice of consumption of the beef is accepted in some communities and it is not accepted in some other communities. Say, usually what will happen, the communities which will allow, they will defend that it is our cultural habit. And the religions or the communities which do not approve that kind of practice, they will try to offend it. So this is where if one particular person, group opposes that, then obviously it inbreeds a kind of intolerance in the society and it inbreeds a kind of hatredness. The one who is consuming the beef will be looked with a hatred in the society. So because ethnocentrism is prevalent in that particular section, like that. So this is where you have to remember. Say further, it may lead to violence and destroy the social harmony in the system. Say, we might have heard about so many instances where the people who are carrying the beef has been attacked. The people who are consuming the beef has been they were thrashing of that people or like mob lynching of those people. Such kind of instances we have heard about. So their social harmony was under threat. This is one thing. And in the same way, say, it may lead to genesis of inequality in the society. So ethnocentric attitude, say my culture, my caste is superior, my group is superior, my culture is the best one. So in such a way, it leads to inequality. Then it may lead to violation of the human rights also. Say for example, in ethnocentric attitude, you will try to impose some of the sanctions. Now, it is my right to choose which dress should I wear. It is my right to determine which food I can take. It is my right to just choose whatever the things, cultural aspects that I can have. But if one person is judging and one person is not allowing me to do this because that their culture doesn't allow, that means it is leading to violation of my human right. Say, how can you wear this kind of dress? If someone is judging you and you are changing your dressing pattern, that means you are denied of your human right. This is where something happens in ethnocentrism, where the dominant cultural people will try to suppress the minority culture aspects. So this is one thing. And sometimes it may also neglect the richness of other cultures. This is one thing. So minority cultures, the say will be lost in the thing. That is where you can remember that. So these are some of the negative aspects. But friends, if you are having the broad-mindedness, if you are trying to think in this way that, yes, let this culture also prevail. Now, I respect my culture and I equally do not have any problem with other cultures. It is their duty and it is their whims and it is their thing. Then in that way, you are thinking from cultural relativistic perspective. That means to say this concept, that is cultural relativism, is also known by another name that is known as cultural determinism. And this was an approach which has been first proposed by Franz Boas. Franz Boas, in fact, he is an American scholar, and in fact, he is also known as the father of modern anthropology. He is also known as the father of American School of Anthropology. So where Franz Boas tried to introduce this concept as a reaction to the 19th century issues that were running in that. Now, according to Franz Boas, what is cultural relativism? Try to just have a look at here. It is an anthropological attitude. In a simple way to say, it is an attitude that all the cultures are equally valid, as each and every culture is unique and not a comparative unit. Now, what Franz Boas says? Franz Boas says that each and every culture is unique because each and every culture will have some reason and some logic behind following some kind of traditions and some kind of customs and some kind of aspects. So there, what he says is that cultural relativism method is a method where different cultural aspects are generally analyzed objectively and without using the values of one's culture to judge it. So objective analysis of the cultures is possible in the cultural relativism. Whereas in ethnocentrism, subjective analysis, comparative analysis of the cultures will take place. So this is something that is unique. Now, if you are with the cultural relativism, then what does it yield in the society? Means it inbreeds a kind of tolerance in the society where I respect my culture and I allow all others' culture feeling. I follow my culture and I respect all other cultures' beliefs. That. So it also inculcates cultural sensitivity, and it also inculcates a sense of open-mindedness. It also inculcates a sense of inclusive feeling with empathy. If they are doing this, means there might be some logic. If they are doing, means there could be some reason. If they are doing something, means there could be some sort of belief. So let their beliefs prevail, let their things prevail. So if we are with that attitude, then we'll call that as a kind of feeling, that a kind of inclusive mindedness, broad mindedness. Can you able to catch that? So this is the basic advantage of the cultural relativism. And friends, it also implies the position of neutrality, and further it also leads to establish peace and harmony in the society. Say, if you feel that, let this happen, it does not affect my culture, it does not affect my group, it does not affect my thing. So if you are with that broad-mindedness, so then if all performs their own activities in a simple way, from that point of view, what we can say, everyone will have respect towards other cultures. So that's how it leads to establishing social peace and social harmony. That's one thing that you have to remember. And friends, apart from that, the another important advantage is that it emphasizes upon the cultural understanding. So that means we will get a simple kind of understanding the other's cultures. That is another important thing. And apart from this, cultural relativism encourages the suspending the personal biases, and it also discourages the ethnocentrism, and it also counters the assumptions of cultural superiority. That's how. So in society we can have some sort of equality that will be prevailing. So that is another important aspect. So that's how cultural relativism is significant in many walks of the life. And cultural relativism is actually, in fact, it is regarded as one of the dearest concepts to the anthropologists, because it inbreeds a kind of openness, it inbreeds a kind of tolerance, it inbreeds a kind of strengthens the social harmony, it inbreeds a kind of open-mindedness and inclusiveness in the society. So that's where, friends, cultural relativism is generally liked by many of the scholars. And that's where, based on this, you can also just have a question. So why was the concept of cultural relativism has been the dearest concept to anthropologists? So if you have understood the concept in a brief, so read this particular concept further from the books and references, and try to write an answer on this particular question. And if you are more interested, you can share your answer also for the evaluation, and you can also mention your views and opinions in the comment section also. So that let's try to check to what extent you have understood the concept. So friends, this is one important concept that we have to know in the anthropology, that is cultural relativism and ethnocentrism, which is part and parcel of unit 2.1 and 2.2 of your syllabus. So where you have to systematically learn about the concept of culture and approaches to analyze the cultures. I hope you are got a brief idea about this, and try to read this particular concept further and try to write answer for this particular concept. And in next episode, let's try to discuss and let's try to meet up with the concept of society and the basic aspects of society. So what is society? How is it related with culture? Now, what is a social institution, and what are social groups, and what about the concept of social stratification? That means, on whole, in next episode, let us try to discuss about the concept of the nature of society, which is in unit 2.2 of your paper 1 anthropology syllabus. So that's all for the day from my side. So in the next episode, let's meet again with the nature of society. Till then, take care and revise all the other episodes that we have done till there. So thank you all for joining me with this session, and we'll meet again in the next session. Thank you all.